It is indeed a very pitiful sight. It looks like the honor of the uniform and the coat of the warrior are in the past. The wars of the 20th century and modern wars are more like some kind of show in order to deceive as many people as possible by telling them outright lies and disinformation. The purpose of this lie and propaganda is only one: to create the right image in people's minds so that it would be easier to manipulate them later. As an example, we can recall the soldiers and citizens of imperialist Japan, whose propaganda and disinformation were so strong that many Japanese citizens and soldiers continued armed resistance until the mid-70s of the last century, refusing to believe that Tokyo was defeated so heavily in World War II. Today, against the background of military departments around the world, the British Ministry of Defence stands out. This military department increasingly began to resemble some kind of Western news channel, like BBC or CNN. The frequent exposure of the lies of the British military intelligence and the British military department itself forced many people to start treating the statements of these agencies with a high degree of skepticism and distrust. In this video, I would like to talk in detail about the undifferentiated statement of the British highest-ranking military officer, who in his own words caused a lot of negative reactions not only on social networks, but also in the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation. So, the chief of the British Defence Staff, Admiral Anthony David, during an interview with journalists of the newspaper, Financial Times, said that the Russian army had lost almost all its strength and power during the entire period of hostilities. The British Admiral tried so hard to assure people of the truthfulness of his words that he caused a flurry of indignation from users of social networks. Moreover, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation, which had never before reacted to such harsh and propagandistic statements by the British side, this time decided to put a British high-ranking officer in his place. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, the words of Admiral Anthony David are pure lies of a universal scale. The Russian army is stronger than ever, and it proves this on the battlefield by destroying thousands of units of Western heavy military equipment along with mercenaries and so-called retired officers and soldiers of NATO countries. Moreover, in Moscow, they also said that it was better for a British officer to start thinking about the problems of the British Army, which has significantly weakened due to the emptying of its own stocks of weapons that were sent to Ukraine to fight against Russia. The Russian Defense Ministry also stated that the British Army would not last a week against the Russian Army without external support. Moreover, the Russians also mentioned the British Storm Shadow missiles, praised by the West. The Russians said that these British missiles are of very poor quality. These British missiles very often hit civilian buildings, such as schools, hospitals, and kindergartens, rather than military infrastructure. The Russian Defense Ministry also stated that the British Storm Shadow missiles are a very easy target for the Panzer S systems, which have already shot down dozens of these missiles. By the way, one Storm Shadow has already fallen into the hands of the Russian military, and after studying this missile, the Russians were disappointed. Representatives of the Russian Ministry of Defense said that these British missiles are so terrible that their microchips will not be used even in the production of Russian washing machines. Moreover, the Russians asked Admiral Anthony David to send even more British weapons to the Kiev regime, since after the end of the war, all this British metal after melting will help Moscow in the further restoration of Ukraine.